No, it's quite fantastic what's happening right now. You suddenly have the people that have been pushing critical race theory on everybody running away from critical race theory or admitting that they don't know what it is or acting like complete clowns like Joy Reid. I mean, imagine, John, you inviting someone on your show to treat them that way. She may disagree with Rufo's assessment of what critical race theory is or his prescriptions on how we can move forward or whether or not we should teach it, et cetera, et cetera. But to just bring someone on to berate them and belittle them and really just act like a child. You know, MSNBC, though, is so bad, it almost makes CNN look like a news network. So that's kind of impressive in and of itself. But look, I think that those of us that are fighting critical race theory, whether it's people like you and I who are public people or whether it's the average parent who's got a kid in school that doesn't want their child to be taught about race essentialism, in essence, that race is the most important thing and that you're born guilty if you're white and you're somehow born better, in essence, if you're brown or black. If you don't want those things taught, in some ways, we can't over-intellectualize this argument. If we're constantly looking at their literature and trying to punch holes in it and the rest of it, well, then we're just going to get caught in some of the semantic games that Chris pointed out to Joy. I think we have to just be clear and concise with our language. Do you want your children taught that race is the most important thing? Yes or no? Do you want them taught that America is fundamentally evil and that slavery was the most important piece of our founding? Yes or no? We can do some basic things like that. That's how you beat these guys, because you can get to what people really know is true. It's, John, you're not going to believe this. I don't care about people's skin color.
Yes.
And if you're a black kid or a white kid or an Asian kid or whatever else, I want you treated equally and fairly, and that's the best that a civil society can do.
I mean, and that's the question you got to ask. And what Rufo's point is here is you got to get specific with people who advocate for these policies. Call them out on it. Name specific names. I'm going to talk about this with Matt Gaetz coming up in the next segment as well. He had that dust up with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff yesterday. But you got to get specific because this stuff is actually happening. And Joy Reid wants to tell us that it's not happening in schools. We have evidence to the contrary. The same thing they want us to believe, too, Dave, is that, guys like you and I, we never learned about slavery and that there were actually slave owners. I learned about the Ku Klux Klan when I was in grade school and middle school. And, I pointed out the other day that, I think I talked to you about this, when I was in 8th grade, they showed us pictures of Emmett Till and the lynching, and we learned about the hard lessons. But Joy Reid, she's one of these people that will tell you that, they don't teach that stuff in school these days. It's a blatant lie.
It's a blatant lie, and they know that they're lying, and they know that we know that they're lying, and they continue to lie. That is the game that they are playing. Everyone in America, I guarantee you, John, every single person watching this right now was taught about slavery in school. They were taught about racial injustice. They were taught about Martin Luther King Jr., which, by the way, I'm all for being taught those things. I'm not a big fan at this point of public education, and I don't think anyone with their head on straight could be at this point, but I understand that not everyone can afford charter schools or private schools, which is why, personally, I would be for funding children. You fund the child, not the school, but that's sort of a separate issue. But the point is, they're lying because the new meme, because they're starting to lose the narrative on critical race theory, the new meme is, the Republicans or the conservatives don't want anyone to learn about racism. This is simply a lie. Every single child in America is taught about racism. I have never once heard anyone say that we should not teach about MLK or we should not teach about slavery or civil rights or anything like that. Literally nobody.
Right. A lot of Republicans do like to teach the fact that it was Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, who actually, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But that's the thing is, one side is willing to talk about all aspects of this, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The other side, and that's Joy Reid and those who are proponents of critical race theory or whatever they want to call it nowadays, they only want to tell their side of the story right now, and that is what you laid out there, that America was founded to industrialize slavery around the world, that it's inherently racist as a nation, and that your future is predetermined by the color of your skin. But let's leave that there because there's plenty of other stuff to talk about, including F-15s, Dave, and nuclear weapons. We used to talk about the nuclear option being something that relates to the filibuster and judicial nominees, but now we're talking about it for Second Amendment advocates. Joe Biden, if you wanted to, or if you think that you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The Taliban are over in Afghanistan right now kind of laughing at that statement.
Well, John, first off, Biden just made the greatest argument for the Second Amendment and for your right as a citizen, your God-given right protected in the Second Amendment to own and bear arms, because he's basically saying, we, the government, we've got a lot of weapons, F-15s, nukes, a whole bunch of stuff. So unless you think you can get those things, you better sit back and be quiet. So he actually made the most pro-Second Amendment argument that there is, which, by the way, it doesn't surprise me that Biden's making a sort of backward circular logic argument, because I'm not sure he knows exactly where he is anyway. But this is just one of those things where, again, everything that comes out of the left is a lie. We have background checks. Now, we can talk about the gun show loophole, which they love, and there's certain things that perhaps we could tie up. But we know that the people who do the mass shootings are not members of the NRA. In almost every instance, they have not bought their guns legally. We have background checks related to psychological problems and a whole series of other things. So they just keep lying and keep lying in the goal of just taking weapons away from people. And by the way, the average person in America, we know that, there was a huge amount of guns bought in the last year. I'm a first-time gun owner. I have several guns now, first time in the last year. It's because people are watching cities defund the police, and they're watching crime rampant everywhere. People are not buying guns so that they hopefully have to attack the government. It's not, you should have a right to defend yourself from tyranny. I just watched a documentary on Thomas Jefferson this morning on YouTube, and that's the whole point of the Second Amendment. But the point is, people want to be able to protect themselves. That is your God-given right, and something that's enshrined to us, and we must protect from people like Joe Biden.
The tree of liberty is watered with the blood of patriots. That was the quote he kind of botched again yesterday. Maybe the president should avoid these quotes. And, I talk to people too, and they talk to me about guns, or, they ask me how many guns I have, and they're like, well, you seem to like guns. And I was like, well, I like guns as much as the next red-blooded American, but what I really like is the Constitution. And when you advocate, and that's again what the left doesn't quite understand, is for the right, it's about the Constitution, and the Second Amendment doesn't have anything to do with hunting or, magazines or clips or whatever you want to call them. It's about the right to keep and bear arms and holding the government accountable, the tyrannical governments accountable, just like we did the British. All right. Speaking of tyrants, let's move on to Gavin Newsom now. I'm calling him Governor Nero because he is fiddling while California burns. And Dave, I've been covering this story. I mean, they're going to spend a lot of money, like $2 billion on fire mitigation. This was after the media and the left, mocked President Trump for saying this was a big issue. And then Gavin Newsom gets caught by California Public Radio, of all people, lying about it, vastly overstating how much he has done for fire mitigation, why people's homes and businesses burn.
Gavin Newsom is a liar and a fraud and a con man, and looks like he should have been cast in the movie American Psycho. Look at that picture. I mean, come on, man. That was Bateman. My Joe Biden impression. Did you get that? Come on, man. But Gavin Newsom, look. He right now, if you want, whether you like Gavin Newsom or don't like Gavin Newsom, there is an interesting experiment happening right now, which is that because of the recall, because 1.7 million Californians, not crazy right-wing maniacs, as all of the commercials are saying, that this was a right-wing ploy. That's what Bernie said to, upend democracy by getting rid of Gavin. 1.7 million Californians who were locked in their homes and lost their jobs and had their businesses closed, they said, we want to get rid of this guy who's racking up a $20K alcohol bill at French Laundry, one of the most expensive restaurants in California. But what's interesting, by doing the recall, there are some things happening right now in California. John, I think you're coming to my big 45th birthday party this weekend in Cali. I don't know that you want that known that you're going to be in crazy Los Angeles, but I'm very happy to report that at the underpass near my house where the highways converge, there has been a massive homeless encampment with dozens and dozens of people basically building apartments for months, and it's gone suddenly. And that's not a coincidence. It's that Newsom realizes he has a little window right now, basically the summer, to clean up the city of LA, but broadly the state. Otherwise, he actually will get recalled and someone else will be voted in. So the point is that public pressure, when we use public pressure and say, no, you cannot be a tyrannical overlord, we're going to do something about it. We the people, are going to fight back. Then you can make them do something. So regardless of whether Newsom, I don't want him to win the recall, obviously, but whatever happens then, at least some good things are happening now because some good people chose to fight back, and they're not right-wing maniacs for doing so.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.